There's a couple things that air conditioning requires to operate. One is airflow. Two is compressor operation. The compressor has to operate in order to complete that refrigeration cycle and remove the heat from the coil that's inside the house. First thing that we're going to check is the filter. And this filter is dirty like this. I mean, this unit's actually still working, but sometimes they get so clogged that there's no airflow, almost no airflow at all, especially after the winter time, because the heating doesn't require as much airflow as the cooling does. That might be the problem if there's not enough airflow. Poor airflow, common causes: dirty air filter or a very dirty A-coil. 95% of service calls for air conditioning are because of the filter. If your filter was the problem, congratulations, you just saved yourself a ton of money. If it wasn't, watch on. What we're trying to do is we're trying to determine what event is missing from the sequence of operation. First thing we have to do, and I know this is going to seem kind of obvious, is go to our thermostat and make sure that the fan is on auto, system is on, and the set point is well below the room temperature. And depending on the thermostat model, you'll hear a click and you'll see a visual indicator that'll say cool on. If you suspect the thermostat's bad because you don't hear a click or don't see the indicator turn on, then you can bypass the thermostat by using a paper clip between the Y terminal and the R terminal. Now the thermostat's on or jumped, and when we come back here by the furnace, we should hear the furnace making noise, rumbling if the furnace is on, and we should hear some hissing noise coming from this evaporator coil right here. If the furnace is rumbling and there's air blowing from your vents, that means the blower in the furnace is working. If there's no air from your vents and there's no noise at the furnace here, then the first thing you should check is this disconnect switch right here. And a lot of times they're not in the open like this. They're like in closets and inconspicuous places. And sometimes people bump them by accident and they're in the off position. If it's not, the second thing you should check is your circuit breaker. We got this far, which means our filter's clean, our thermostat is working, and our blower is on. Next thing you want to check are these two lines right here going into the evaporator. This is the liquid line and this is the suction line. This is where the temperature of our lines become very important. Normal operation is when the suction line is about 45 degrees and the liquid line is warm to the touch or warmer, but not hot. If this liquid line here is hot or burning hot, sometimes they're really hot, then that's where you want to come outside and take a look at your condenser. First thing you want to check is to make sure that this fan right here is running. And if it's not running, a lot of times it just needs a little push with a stick or something just to get it going, as you can see here in this video. Because especially if this is the first time you're turning on your AC this season, a lot of times they get seized because they haven't turned on all winter. And if the fan is working, then the next thing you want to do is you want to disconnect the power or turn the thermostat to off to get this condenser to shut off, and then you want to clean the condenser coil. If you come back to the coil and this liquid line right here is hissing or the suction line is freezing, then more than likely the unit's low on refrigerant. But that means that your compressor is working. If the unit's low on refrigerant, now is the time to call a technician. But at least you know that's the problem. If these two lines here are room temperature and there's no hissing noise, more than likely the condenser's off. If after checking those lines you come outside and the condenser's off, then what you need to do is you need to first check this disconnect right here. And a lot of times if you have some landscapers or something doing some work, they don't want all the debris to get sucked in the coil, so they'll pull this little disconnect here out and put it in the off position. So a lot of times they'll leave and they'll forget. Now if after checking the disconnect and checking the breaker, which is usually in your basement in your circuit breaker box, and the condenser still isn't on, then more than likely it's a wiring issue between the thermostat wiring of the furnace to the condenser, or a wiring issue between this disconnect and your breaker box. Just those few things I went over with you cover the cause of failure for about 75% of all the air conditioning service calls I've ever done. I hope I helped you fix your air conditioning.